There is a kind of music that does not merely ask to be heard, it asks to be felt, carried, and remembered long after the final note fades into the dark. Il Volo knows this. Piero Barone, Ignazio Boschetto, and Gianluca Ginoble have built their careers not on flash or spectacle, but on something far more rare, the capacity to reach across language, geography, and time, and touch the most tender places in the human heart. Their world tour is not simply a series of concerts. It is a pilgrimage. A global gathering of souls who believe, perhaps more now than ever, that music is the last truly universal language. From the moment the lights dimmed in arenas across North America and the first chord trembled through the air, something shifted in the room. Audiences who had traveled hours, some crossing state lines, some crossing oceans, fell into a collective silence so profound it felt almost sacred. And then the voices rose. 3 voices, blended into something greater than the sum of their parts, filling spaces that seemed suddenly too small to contain them. Fans described the moment as being pulled gently out of the noise of everyday life and placed somewhere timeless, somewhere warm and golden, like a memory you didn't know you had. Many in the audience were seen wiping tears before a single word had even been sung. In Buenos Aires, under a sky thick with summer stars, Gianluca stepped to the edge of the stage during a tender ballad and simply looked out at the crowd. He did not reach for a high note. He did not gesture or perform. He simply stood, eyes open, and let the music breathe. The arena held its breath with him. Those who were there later described the moment as feeling personally seen, as though those dark eyes had found each of them, individually, in the crowd. When the phrase finally resolved and he exhaled, the ovation that followed was not the loud, electric roar of a pop concert. It was the sound of thousands of people exhaling together, releasing something they had been holding for a long time. Did you feel this moment too? Did you feel this moment too? Piero's voice has always carried a particular brand of ache, that quality of longing that seems to come from somewhere deeper than breath, as if the sound itself has memory. In Rome, performing not far from the ancient stones that have witnessed centuries of human devotion and grief, he delivered a passage from one of the trio's most beloved songs with his eyes closed and his chin tilted slightly upward, as though offering the notes directly to the sky. The golden stage light caught the line of his jaw, and for a moment, he looked less like a performer and more like a prayer. Viewers around the world who watched the broadcast shared how this performance stayed with them for days afterward, a warmth they could not quite explain and did not want to. There was a moment in Tokyo that fans are still talking about. Midway through the evening, as the trio performed a piece that has traveled with them since the earliest days of their career, Ignazio, whose laughter and warmth have always been the heartbeat of their brotherhood, turned to look at Piero and Gianluca mid-phrase. It was barely a glance, a fraction of a second, but it carried within it years of shared stages, shared sacrifices, shared joy. The crowd caught it. A ripple of tender recognition moved through the arena, the kind that happens when people witness something genuine, something that cannot be rehearsed. Many in the audience were seen pressing their hands to their chests, as though physically steadying something that had moved inside them. Which city's performance touched you the most? Which city's performance touched you the most? In Mexico City, where Il Volo has always been welcomed with a particular kind of ferocious, beautiful love, the audience did not wait for permission to become part of the performance. Thousands of voices rose unprompted during a chorus, not drowning out the trio but joining them, harmonizing instinctively, as though the music lived in the city itself. Gianluca paused, visibly moved, and stepped back from the microphone for a moment, simply listening. When he returned, his voice was thicker with something unspoken. Fans described the exchange as one of the most extraordinary things they had ever witnessed at a live concert. A genuine, unrepeatable conversation between artist and audience, conducted entirely in melody. Have you ever felt music like this before? Have you ever felt music like this before? The world tour also carried moments of quiet vulnerability that fans found unexpectedly moving. Before one performance in Paris, the trio spoke briefly about what it means to carry Italian music to audiences who have never set foot in Italy, about the responsibility and the privilege of being a bridge. Piero, rarely given to long speeches, said simply that every night on stage he thinks of his family, of the people who believed in him when he was a boy with a voice and a dream and very little else. The audience, many of them far from their own homes and their own origins, felt the words land somewhere personal. Viewers around the world who followed the tour noted that this honesty, this willingness to be human on a grand stage, is what sets Il Volo apart. And then there are the standing ovations, those extraordinary moments when thousands of people rise as one, not because they feel they should, but because something in the body simply refuses to remain seated. At arenas across Europe, in cities like Vienna, Madrid, and London, audiences were on their feet before the final note had fully dissolved. Some had been standing through entire encores, swaying gently, unwilling to break the spell. One fan, writing afterward, called it the closest she had ever come to feeling that the whole world was in the same room, wanting the same thing at the same time. There is no stage effect, no lighting rig, no choreography that can manufacture that feeling. It comes only from music that is truly, deeply meant. What Il Volo carries with them on this global tour is something that cannot be packed into a flight case or programmed into a set list. It is the accumulated weight of years of devotion. To their craft, to each other, and to the audiences who have followed them across continents and decades. They tour at full scale not because grandeur is the goal, but because the music demands space, space to expand, to echo, to reach the very last row of the very highest balcony and still arrive with its full emotional force intact. And it does. Every night, in every city, it does. Music, at its greatest, does not recognize borders. It does not require translation. It moves through the chest wall the same way in Sao Paulo as it does in Seoul, in New York as it does in Naples. Il Volo understands this, perhaps more profoundly than any act of their generation. Their world tour is a reminder, luminous and necessary, that what we share is infinitely greater than what divides us. And as long as these three voices rise together on a stage somewhere in the world, that reminder will keep singing. If this journey moved you, we want to hear from you. Leave a comment below telling us which city or performance has stayed closest to your heart. Like this video if Il Volo's music has ever brought you to tears, and subscribe so you never miss another moment from the world's most beloved classical crossover trio. The world is listening. Are you?